News Channel 8. This is News Talk with Bruce DePoint.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. It is terrific to have you with us today. As you can tell, we are in Annapolis this time, just outside the historic Maryland State House. Maryland lawmakers have returned to the Capitol for a 90-day session that runs from today until mid-April. This is when state lawmakers gather, and as always, a host of budget and policy decisions will be made. Billions of dollars will be allocated, policy decisions will be debated and voted upon. So it is the beginning of a very intense time here in Maryland's capital. We've got a great lineup for you today, and joining us as he does every year at this time, Mike Miller. He's a Democrat from Southern Maryland. He is the long-serving president of the Maryland Senate. President Miller, it's good to have you here. Thanks very much for your time. It's an honor to have you with us today. You never wear a coat. You and I, this is a tradition for us. We are grateful for your time. It is freezing outside today, and you must have some great Southern Maryland blood or something, because you never wear a jacket.
Well, I got 30 events to go to. It's too hard to put on your coat, scarf, gloves, what have you, and just go from place to place, and it works so well for me.
What sort of session are you expecting this year? Where do you think the heavy lifting will come?
It's going to be on the budget. The budget's morally what we're all about. Last year, we broke down over public education. Nobody cuts public education on my watch. And so, as a consequence, we mandated fully funded public education, the GCI. We did that last year. Didn't want to do it. We had to do it. And now our school children can rest assured that they've got the money at least coming from the state. But we're going to have other issues as well. Economic development, law enforcement, the environmental protection, health care. We're going to hold a whole range of issues before us. But mainly it's going to focus around the budget and what we are morally about as a state.
How much tension do you expect between the Assembly? The Assembly here, the House of Delegates, and the State Senate are controlled by Democrats. We have a still relatively new governor in Maryland, and Republican Larry Hogan. He feels passionately that he was elected to cut taxes. How much, is there enough money to do both?
There is, but he's passionate, and he's Irish, and he's enjoyable, but he's not a good communicator. Okay, I like him as a person. But all these things you've been reading about in the Washington Post he wants to do, and he hasn't spoken to the Speaker about it, hasn't spoken to me about it. We're the people supposed to enact these things into law. A lot of these bills are proposals that are worn-out bills that Democrats have passed, are tried to put into play before, but have been rejected. And if we could tell them in advance what was wrong with them or why we didn't pass them before, I think it would ease some of the pain and anguish rather than saying, they killed my bill, they killed my bill. Nobody wants to kill his bill. We want to work with him and make positive things happen for the state of Maryland. But government is a team. The administration, the executive, legislative, and judicial branch working together on behalf of the people of the state of Maryland. But you have to communicate with one another.
The budget cuts that he has proposed, some of them might sound really good to a lot of the people listening to us today and following the work of the Assembly during the course of the next 90 days. Tax cuts for retirees, tax cuts for people making less than $53,000 a year. Yeah. These are proposals that a Democrat might well put forward.
Except that, he got elected by telling people that O'Malley raised 40 tax increases. That's hogwash. 40 tax increases, hogwash. I voted for whatever tax increase that O'Malley passed, and it was a single digit. But what he's counting is like a fee increase in the Department of Motor Vehicles or a licensed marriage increase. So unilaterally, what he says, I'm going to cut in half all fees, 30 fees, without regard to what they were supposed to be paying for, or how valuable they were for obtaining that hunting permit or what have you. So he's going to say, I've cut more taxes than O'Malley raised. That's political nonsense. We're supposed to be government of substance. If he wants to cut the income tax, then come talk to me, and that's where people are really affected. We have a very high income tax, 5.75 for the state and 3.2 added on by the counties. It's one of the highest in the United States. That's what the people care about, not a fee for a hunting license or a fee for a wedding permit.
Is Maryland's budget structurally sound? The basic income that comes in every year and the basic expenses, are they where they should be, or is there a structural...
We've taken a $2 billion deficit without this administration, without this governor, and taken it into now $500 million surplus. These are Democrats. We're the longest-serving state in union to have a AAA bond rating. All the bond rating houses say we're well-managed, we balance our budget every year, and we've come up with a surplus every year.
That's Wall Street's sign of approval.
That's sign of approval. We got a $500 million surplus. So we still would have had a $500 million surplus, even if he'd have funded the Prince George's Hospital last year, $15 million, which he cut, and $68 million for public schools, for public education, K-12. waste, fraud, and abuse is not cutting money from K through 12. That was a huge mistake on his part. We didn't want to mandate it, but we did, and we don't want things like that to occur in this next session of the General Assembly. Now, I extend an olive branch to him. I want to work with him. I've known him for 50 years. I've known him since he was a young man. He's a good person, and we can work together, but he's got to get rid of Nikki Haley's handlers and Chris Sweeney's spanners and these right-wing Tea Party people from all over the United States that have come to Annapolis to advise him on how to screw up things here in the state of Maryland.
He is personally popular with the people of the state of Maryland. Sure. He has just come through a difficult health struggle. A year ago, he had that challenge that new governors have in Maryland, where you come into office, you're trying to figure out, like, where's the Xerox machine, where's the bathroom, and oh, by the way, you have to staff a government and put a multi-billion-dollar budget together. What do you expect to see in terms of the evolution of Larry Hogan, the governor, and the Hogan team?
Well, you know, hopefully it's a learning process. You know, I wear a green band on my arm somewhere, you know, to help recognize people with his type of illnesses. And I brought the Cardinal here to pray for him at the mansion, and hopefully it has been successful. But it's, you know, he had 1 year. It was a honeymoon process and a little jerky. But we want to work with him. I met with the staff earlier this morning and told them I want to work with him, and I suggested ways that they could improve certain things like justice reinvestment, and we can all hold hands and say, good job. Last year, he had 3 initiatives: eliminating the rain tax, veterans tax cuts, and charter schools. I made sure all 3 of them passed. I made sure they passed the Senate, passed the House. We worked the House to make them happy and sign all. And I did this, which is great. Well, we can do that again, but he needs to communicate.
Can you talk about the panel that you and your counterpart across the hall, House Speaker Mike Bush, put together to look at police-community relations in the wake of the Baltimore riot? What recommendations might flow from that as lawmakers begin their work today?
Well, the public needs to be more involved, so they need to understand what police work is all about. We're not going to throw our police people under the bus. I mean, the men and women in blue, they're there for you. I mean, I learned that as a kid, and I still believe it. But at the same time, we need to recognize that civilians need some input, that they don't need 10 days of time off before they speak to anybody about some misdoing. Citizens should have a longer time to be able to file a complaint. It doesn't have to be notarized. And guess what? Before you can be a police officer, it'd be helpful if you have a psychological evaluation. And also, we need the same standards for police across the state, not just one subdivision of Baltimore City, but all 323 counties in Baltimore City. These are some of the things that are recommended will make positive things happen for the people of the state of Maryland.
Do you think an ignition interlock bill will pass this year, mandating the sort of device that if you've had a DUI issue in the past, that you basically have to convince the car you're sober before the key will turn?
Well, you say if you're a repeat offender.
Not first time.
Not first time.
Repeat.
I mean, a housewoman, a housewife, or something like. These are very expensive, by the way. This is not some charity thing. These people make a lot of money off these things. It's like $100 some a month to have one of these things in your car. Plus, you got to pay to have them installed. So, in addition, you go to court, you pay a fine, you pay a lawyer, what have you.
What are the odds a repeat bill goes through?
It's right now. Let's say, for example, if you blow above a 1.5, even if you're a first-time offender, so that means you're double level of intoxication, first-time offender. Then what you have to do is you're either going to lose your license for 4 months, or have one of those devices in your car for a year. So that's in place right now for a first offender who indicates they might have a drinking problem because of the high amount of alcohol in their system.
You think a bill for repeat offenders will go through?
Yeah, we're going to do some things with drunk drivers, believe me, including punitive damage for people who repeat drunk drivers. You know, like this Episcopal bishop in Baltimore City who just let off after a huge drunk driving, and then she goes out and kills a bicyclist. You know, people like that should be not just held criminally, but not worried about interlocks, but worried about going to jail and also compensating that family who were killed.
Before we let you go, Senator Miller, and we're always grateful for your time, you are involved in and you follow national politics closely. The race for the Democratic presidential nomination is getting close. It's getting exciting. Bernie Sanders gaining on Hillary Clinton in the early contest. Of course, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Your thoughts on what you think will happen?
Well, it's not what I think. It's what I hope will happen. I hope it's Hillary, because guess what? Bernie Sanders can't be the Republican nominee. You know, he's too far to the left. The American people are in the middle. People on the far left are getting shut out. People on the far right should get it. If Clinton wins, you know, if the Republicans were smart, which they're not, they would put up Rubio and Kasich. because the Democrats need to carry both Florida and Ohio, but they're not that smart. Okay, so I'm hoping Hillary Clinton wins and Hillary Clinton will clean their clock. Otherwise, Democrats are going to lose.
As a political analyst and one of the smartest people I know, how do you interpret the Trump phenomenon?
People are angry. People are angry. People are angry. One of the reasons that the Republicans in Virginia want only Republicans to vote in the Republican primary, because guess what? White Democrats on the lower end of the spectrum are going to vote for Trump. These Reagan Democrats who are angry. They're angry about race relations. They're angry about immigration. They're angry about women getting put ahead of them. And they're voting for Trump. He expresses their anger and resentment. And if their jobs are now overseas. We've lost all these jobs overseas and they're not coming back. People are angry and they want to vote for the man who's standing up and speaking out. But at the same time, he reminds me of McCarthyism. He reminds me of these things in the 1920s that happened. We don't need to go back there, whether a Democrat or Republican. And plus, he's like one of our state officials. I'm not going to name his name. He's a fraud. He's a moderate Democrat who's now transforming himself, saying I'm a right-wing Tea Party conservative to get the vote. That's nonsense. You got to be true to yourself. He's not true to himself, as are other politicians that we know.
Mike Miller is a Democrat from Southern Maryland. He is the long-serving president of the Maryland Senate, and it's always great to have you here on the first day of session talking about important issues. Thanks very much for your time. We'll talk with you during the course of the session and when it's over in April. Appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. We'll take a break. We're back with much more News Talk from Annapolis right after this.